Captain He stood at the large window of the Terran Defense Force headquarters, her eyes fixed on the massive ship that had appeared in Earth's orbit 3 hours ago. The ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant silver arrow pointing at Earth. "Captain, they're sending another message," said Officer Dae-sung, who sat at the communications desk. His fingers moved quickly over the screen as he worked to translate the alien language. He walked to his desk, her boots making soft sounds on the floor. "What do they say this time?" "They want to land, Captain. They say they need to build a special structure first because—" Dae-sung paused and looked confused. "Because they think our air is dangerous." He raised an eyebrow. This was new. Usually, in all their planning for first contact, they had worried about aliens finding Earth's environment too weak or simple, but these aliens seemed afraid of Earth itself. The large screen in front of them lit up, showing the face of an alien. He looked almost human, except for his silver skin and completely black eyes. He wore what looked like a complex spacesuit with many tubes and lights. "I am Supreme Commander Do-1 of the Galactic Confederation," the alien said in perfect English, thanks to their translation technology. "We request permission to build a safe landing zone. Your atmosphere contains—" He paused, looking at something off-screen. "Your atmosphere contains extremely dangerous levels of toxic gases." He shared a confused look with her team. Earth's air was perfectly normal to them. "Supreme Commander, we breathe this air every day. It keeps us alive." Do-1's black eyes widened. "Impossible. Our scans show your atmosphere is full of oxygen. It's highly corrosive. No advanced species could evolve in such conditions." The room fell silent. He felt a smile forming on her face as she understood what was happening. These aliens hadn't evolved with oxygen. To them, Earth was a death world. "Commander Do-1," she said carefully, "we welcome you to Earth. You have permission to build your safe zone. We will help in any way we can." The alien commander nodded, but He could see worry in his strange eyes. "Our initial scans of your species show very thin skin, no protective scales, and a complete lack of armor plating. How do you survive in such harsh conditions?" He thought about how to answer. These aliens clearly thought humans were weak because they were different. "Perhaps," she said, "what looks like weakness to you is actually strength we developed over millions of years." Do-1 didn't seem convinced. He ordered his team to begin building their landing zone, a huge dome that would hold their kind of air. As He watched the construction ships appear from the larger vessel, she received an urgent message from Earth's scientists. "Captain," called Dr. Jae-yun from her lab. "We've analyzed their message data. They breathe pure nitrogen. Oxygen is like acid to them. No wonder they think we're living in an impossible environment." He looked back at the alien ship. Earth's first contact with alien life was turning out very different from what anyone had expected. Instead of finding humans too weak, these aliens thought humans were somehow surviving in what they saw as a toxic world. "Send a message to all Earth governments," He ordered. "Tell them our visitors are going to need some time to adjust to us, and tell them to be ready for some very interesting conversations about what it means to be strong." As she watched more alien ships enter Earth's orbit, He wondered how many other surprises this first contact would bring. One thing was clear: the aliens' idea of weakness and strength was about to change forever. Lead scientist Jae-yun looked through her microscope at the sample of alien tissue. The medical officer from the Galactic Confederation, Yuri, stood nearby in her protective suit, watching carefully. They were inside the newly built dome that the aliens had constructed, which was filled with pure nitrogen. "This is amazing," Jae-yun said, lifting her head from the microscope. "Your cells break down completely when exposed to oxygen. But how do you get energy without it?" Yuri moved closer, her environmental suit making soft whirring sounds. "We use nitrogen processing. Your method of using oxygen for energy is extremely dangerous. It's like living with fire inside your bodies." Jai-yun smiled at this description. She had never thought of human biology this way. Would you like to see how our cells work with oxygen? Yuri stepped back quickly. You want to show me active human tissue? Here. Now. Her voice showed both fear and curiosity. Don't worry, Jai-yun assured her. We have it in a sealed container. She took out a small, clear box with human blood cells inside. Yuri leaned forward carefully to look at it. Impossible, Yuri whispered. Your cells are using oxygen right now, breaking it apart, and they're not destroying themselves. She checked her instruments. The energy output is remarkable. In another part of the dome, Captain He-jin met with Commander Do-won. They sat at opposite ends of a long table, separated by a clear barrier. Do-won's side was filled with nitrogen, while He-jin sat in a small space with Earth's normal air. Your cities have no protection from oxygen, Do-won said, looking at images of Earth on a large screen. Your children play in it. You even have devices that make more oxygen for sick people. How is this possible? He-jin thought about how to explain. Commander, what's poison to one species can be life to another. We need oxygen. Without it, we would die in minutes. Do-won's silver face showed shock. Minutes? You need poison that badly. He turned to his assistant. Add this to the report. Humans require constant exposure to corrosive gas to survive. In her lab, Jai-yun made another discovery. She rushed to the communication panel and called He-jin. Captain, you need to see this. The aliens' environmental suits, they're not just protecting them from oxygen. They're protecting them from water vapor too. He-jin looked at Do-won with new understanding. Your people find our clouds frightening, don't you? Do-won nodded slowly. Water in gas form, freely floating in your atmosphere. Combined with oxygen, it creates acids. Your world is surrounded by acid clouds, yet you walk beneath them without fear. As evening approached, Jai-yun gathered her research team. They had learned more about alien biology in one day than they had imagined possible. But the aliens had learned even more about humans, and it had changed their view completely. Their preliminary report called us primitive because our bodies looked soft and unprotected, Jai-yun told her team. Now they're calling us highly advanced because we can live in conditions they consider deadly. They're rewriting their entire assessment of Earth. Outside the dome, rain began to fall. The alien scientists gathered at the windows, watching with a mixture of horror and amazement as humans walked through the rain without any protection. To them, it looked like humans were taking a shower in weak acid. Should we tell them about our oceans? He-jin asked Jai-yun quietly. Jai-yun shook her head. Let's wait on that. I think they've had enough surprises for one day. Finding out that most of our planet is covered in liquid water might be too much for them right now. As night fell, both humans and aliens had much to think about. What humans had always considered normal was turning out to be extraordinary in the eyes of the galaxy. And this was just the beginning of their discoveries. Professor Taiho stood in the conference room of the alien dome, facing an audience of both humans and aliens. Behind him, a large screen showed images of Earth's earliest life forms. The aliens sat in their sealed section of the room, while the human delegates sat in their oxygen-rich area. Earth wasn't always full of oxygen, Taiho began, pointing to the first image. 3 billion years ago, our atmosphere was more like yours, mostly nitrogen. The oxygen came later, and it changed everything. Commander Do-won leaned forward in his chair. You mean your planet became toxic over time? How did life survive? That's the interesting part, Taiho said. He moved to the next image, showing ancient bacteria. Small organisms began to make oxygen as a waste product. At first, this oxygen was poison to most life on Earth. It killed many species. The alien scientists whispered among themselves. One of them, Chief Researcher Kyung-ho, raised his hand, just like it would kill us now. Taiho nodded. Exactly. But some life forms didn't die. Instead, They change. They learn to use this poison. They turned it into power. He showed the next image, displaying how cells used oxygen to make energy. Military strategist Sun Mai watched the aliens' reactions from her seat. She noticed how they shifted uncomfortably when Taeho explained that humans needed oxygen to power their muscles, their brains, and even their immune systems. This is why humans can think so quickly, Taeho explained. Why we can run for hours, heal from injuries, and fight off diseases. Oxygen lets our cells make more energy than nitrogen-based life forms can. An alien scientist dropped her data pad. The sound echoed in the quiet room. You're saying that living in poison made you stronger. Evolution is strange that way, Taeho said with a smile. What doesn't kill a species might eventually become its greatest strength. Sun Ma stood up and walked to the front of the room. This is why we look weak to you but aren't. Our bodies don't need armor or thick scales because we turned our poison environment into an advantage. Commander Du-won's black eyes showed understanding for the first time. This explains the data from our first scans. We thought your cities were primitive because they had no protection from oxygen. We were wrong. The oxygen is your protection. Later that day, Sun Mai met with Captain He Jin in the base cafeteria. Through the windows, they could see the alien dome glowing in the evening light. Inside, the alien scientists were still discussing what they had learned. Did you see their faces when Professor Taeho showed them the ocean statistics? Sun Ma asked, drinking her coffee. I thought they would faint when they learned that most Earth creatures live in oxygen-rich water. He Jin nodded. They're starting to understand that we're not just surviving here. Earth's environment made us what we are. Every breath we take would kill them, but it makes us stronger. Their military reports are being rewritten, Sun Ma added. They thought we were easy targets because we had no natural armor. Now they're calling Earth a death world, and humans oxygen-powered super beings. She laughed at the idea. Outside, rain started falling again. The aliens in the dome watched it with new respect, understanding now that this was the same force that had shaped human life. What they saw as a hostile world was actually a garden that had grown something remarkable. A species that turned poison into power. Tomorrow, He Jin said, watching the rain, we'll tell them about how we use bacteria that eat metal to clean our environment. I think they've had enough surprises for one day. Sun Ma smiled. Maybe we should wait a week before we tell them about tardigrades. Chief Scientist Kyung-ho stared at the test results on his screen. He had been studying human tissue samples for 3 days now, and each new discovery made him more amazed. He sat in his nitrogen-filled laboratory inside the dome, surrounded by advanced testing equipment from the Galactic Confederation. This cannot be correct, he said, running the tests again. Their cells repair themselves too quickly. The numbers must be wrong. His assistant, Yun Seo, looked over his shoulder at the data. Sir, we've run these tests 5 times now. The results are real. Human cells don't just survive in oxygen. They use it to heal damage. In the human section of the research facility, Dr. Jae-yun received Kyung-ho's findings. She smiled as she read through them. The aliens were finally beginning to understand what made humans special. They thought we were fragile because our skin gets cut easily, she told Captain He Jin during their daily meeting. But they just discovered that we heal 20 times faster than any species they've ever met. He Jin picked up a tablet showing the alien report. So our weak bodies are actually constantly rebuilding themselves. Exactly, Jae-yun said. Their bodies are tough but slow to repair. Our bodies get damaged easily but fix themselves quickly. We're like a building that rebuilds itself instead of a fortress with thick walls. In his laboratory, Kyung-ho made another discovery. He called an emergency meeting with both human and alien scientists. They gathered in the divided conference room. Separation barrier in place. Look at this, he said, displaying a video of human blood cells. When we add harmful substances, the human cells don't just fight them off. They remember them. They get stronger for the next time. The alien scientists watched in silence as Kyung-ho showed them how human immune systems learned and adapted. One of them, Dr. Min-soo, spoke up. Their bodies are not weak. They are always training for battle. Later that day, Commander Do-won called a meeting with his senior staff. We must update our understanding of humans, he said. What we saw as primitive is actually advanced. Their soft skin, it grows back stronger. Their exposed lungs, they filter poison and turn it into energy. Their liquid-filled bodies, the liquid carries healing cells everywhere they need to go. The medical officer, Yuri, added her own findings. Sir, it gets more interesting. Humans don't just heal, they get stronger from being hurt. Their muscles grow back bigger after damage. Their bones become thicker where they break. Even their skin becomes tougher where it gets used most. Outside the dome, Earth's autumn weather was changing. The aliens watched through their windows as leaves fell from trees. This natural process fascinated them. Plants changing color, losing their parts, and surviving to grow again. It reminded them of what they were learning about humans. We came here thinking we were studying a weak species, Kyung-ho told his team that evening. Instead, we found creatures that eat poison for breakfast, drink acid to stay alive, and get stronger every time they break. Perhaps we should be grateful they are peaceful. Hae-jin received the aliens' new report about human biology that night. The title made her laugh. Humanity. The species that refuses to break. She showed it to Jae-yun, who had worked so hard to help the aliens understand. Should we tell them about how humans can survive in space? Jae-yun asked with a smile. Let's save that for next week, Hae-jin replied. I think they need time to accept that what they thought was our greatest weakness turned out to be our greatest strength. The alarms in the alien dome started blaring at exactly 3:47 p.m. Earth time. Red lights flashed everywhere as the environmental systems began to fail. Captain Hae-jin was in a meeting with Commander Do-won when it happened. Emergency, emergency. The computer's voice echoed through the dome. Environmental containment failing. Oxygen leak detected in sectors 3 through 7. Do-won's silver face turned an even paler shade. This is impossible. Our systems have triple backups. Hae-jin jumped into action. How many of your people are in the affected areas? 23. Do-won said, checking his screens. Their suits will only last 30 minutes if exposed to your atmosphere. His hand shook as he pressed buttons on his control panel. Hae-jin grabbed her communication device. This is Captain Hae-jin. I need all emergency response teams at the dome immediately. Bring extra oxygen scrubbers and sealed transport pods. We have 23 lives to save. Inside the failing sectors, alien scientists tried to stay calm. Their environmental suits glowed with warning lights as oxygen started leaking into their work areas. Yuri, the medical officer, gathered her team in a sealed laboratory. The emergency barriers are not working, she reported to Do-won. Something has damaged the main computer. We cannot stop the oxygen from coming in. Outside the dome, Hae-jin met with her emergency teams. Dr. Jae-yun had brought portable nitrogen generators from her lab. These can create small safe zones, she explained. But we'll have to reach the trapped aliens first. Hae-jin looked at her team. They wore their normal clothes and breathing gear that would let them work in pure nitrogen. What seemed like special equipment to the aliens was just simple safety gear to humans. Listen up, she told her team. We're going to create a rescue corridor. Use the nitrogen generators to make a safe path. Move fast but careful. Remember, what's normal air to us is poison to them. The rescue teams entered the dome through emergency airlocks. They carried equipment that would help them find the aliens and get them to safety. In the control room, Do-won watched in amazement as humans walked confidently through what his people considered deadly air. Your rescue workers, he said to Hae-jin, they're going into oxygen-rich areas with such thin protection. Aren't they afraid? Hae-jin smiled despite the serious situation. Commander, we breathe oxygen every day. To us, This is like walking through a room filled with clean air. The rescue moved quickly. Human teams found groups of aliens and guided them to safe areas. They set up nitrogen generators to create safe paths. Some aliens had to be carried when their suits started to fail. Yuri watched as human rescuers lifted her colleagues to safety. "They're so much stronger than we thought," she said to Jai-yun, who was helping nearby. "They're carrying our people while walking through poison." After 2 hours of careful work, all 23 aliens were safe. The rescue teams had managed to save everyone without a single injury. The damaged sections of the dome were sealed off for repairs. In the emergency meeting that followed, Commander Du-won spoke to the human leaders. "Today we saw true strength," he said. "Not in armor or protective shells, but in the ability to act quickly and help others, even in conditions we consider impossible." Hae-jin nodded. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is help someone else survive." That evening, as repair teams worked on fixing the dome, Hae-jin received a message from the Galactic Confederation. They had heard about the rescue. Their message was short but important. "We may have greatly misunderstood what makes a species strong." Ambassador Minji stood before the Galactic Confederation Council, her image projected into their nitrogen-filled chamber from Earth's oxygen-rich presentation room. After the rescue incident at the dome, the Council had requested a full report on human capabilities. "Distinguished Council members," Minji began, "I am here to help you understand why Earth's harsh environment has made humans uniquely capable." Behind her, images of Earth's various environments appeared on the screen. The Council leader, a tall figure with silvery skin, leaned forward. "Ambassador, our initial assessments of humans were clearly wrong. Please help us understand why." Minji showed them the first image, a group of human firefighters entering a burning building. These humans run into fires to save others. Their bodies can handle extreme heat because Earth's oxygen lets them cool down quickly. The Council members watched in silence as she showed more images. Mountain climbers in thin air, deep sea divers in crushing pressure, and doctors working long hours in emergency rooms. "Your people thought we were weak because we had no natural armor," Minji continued. "But we developed something better, the ability to adapt quickly to any situation." In the Earth observation room, Captain Hae-jin watched with Dr. Jai-yun as Minji presented their research. On another screen, they could see the emergency teams still working on dome repairs, wearing simple breathing masks as they moved through nitrogen-rich areas. "Look at their faces," Hae-jin said, pointing to the Council members. "They can't believe humans work in space with just a thin suit between them and vacuum." Jai-yun nodded. "They're starting to understand. What looks like weakness to them is really flexibility. Their thick armor protects them, but our adaptable bodies let us go anywhere." Back in the Council chamber, Minji showed data from Earth's history. Humans have lived in every environment on our planet. We've survived in frozen lands, hot deserts, high mountains, and deep forests. We drink different waters, eat different foods, and breathe air with different amounts of oxygen. One Council member interrupted. "But how do you handle the constant damage from oxygen? Our studies show it should destroy your cells." Minji smiled. "That's the most interesting part. Our cells don't just survive oxygen. They get stronger because of it. Every breath we take would kill your people, but it gives us energy to heal, grow, and think." She showed them pictures of human cities in different environments, underwater research stations, desert solar farms, and mountain observatories. "We build these without environmental domes. We work in these conditions every day." The Council leader spoke again. "After the dome rescue, we received reports that human emergency workers carried our people to safety while breathing oxygen. They showed no fear of conditions we consider lethal. Because to us, it's not lethal," Minji explained. "It's home. And that's the key to understanding humans. We don't just survive in our environment. We thrive in it." As the presentation ended, the Council began their discussions. On Earth, Ho-Jin received their first response within hours. The Galactic Confederation had created a new classification for Earth: Extreme Adaptation Environment. They still don't fully understand us, Jia-Yun said, reading the report. But at least they're not calling us weak anymore. He-Jin looked out at the dome, where human workers continued their repairs. Maybe being called weak wasn't so bad. It meant they underestimated us. Now they know better. Dr. Jin-Ho worked late in his laboratory, studying the results from his latest experiments. The Galactic Confederation had asked him to explain exactly how humans used oxygen so efficiently. His research would change how the aliens saw human biology forever. Dr. Jin-Ho, his computer announced, the alien research team has arrived for the demonstration. The scientist looked up as Commander Do-Won, and his team entered the sealed viewing area. They watched through clear barriers as Jin-Ho prepared his demonstration in the oxygen-rich laboratory. Today, Jin-Ho began. I will show you why oxygen makes humans different from any species you've met. He pointed to a large screen showing human cell structures. This is how we turn what you call poison into power. The alien scientists leaned forward, their black eyes fixed on the display. Jin-Ho showed them a real-time video of human cells processing oxygen. The energy produced lit up on their screens like tiny fireworks. One human cell, Jin-Ho explained, makes more energy in a day than your cells make in a week. This is why we can think faster, move quicker, and heal rapidly. We're not just surviving in oxygen. We're powered by it. Do-Won spoke up, but the energy output should destroy the cells. How do they contain such power? Jin-Ho smiled and switched to a new image. Because our cells learn to control oxygen over millions of years. What tries to destroy us makes us stronger instead. In another part of the facility, Security Council leader Sang-min met with Captain He-Jin. They discussed the implications of Jin-Ho's research. Your people, Sang-min said carefully, are like living fusion reactors. You contain enormous energy in fragile shells, yet you control it perfectly. He-Jin nodded. We never thought of it that way. To us, this is just normal life. Jin-Ho's voice came through their communication system as he continued his presentation. He showed the aliens something new, how human bodies used oxygen to fight diseases. Watch this, he said, displaying a video of human immune cells at work. Our bodies use oxygen to create special molecules that kill harmful invaders. We turn our poison atmosphere into a weapon against illness. The alien scientists whispered among themselves. One of them spoke up. This explains why human medicines don't work on our people. You use oxygen to heal. Exactly, Jin-Ho confirmed. What would kill you helps us live. This is why we can survive injuries that would end other species. Our healing process is powered by the very thing you fear. Later that evening, Sang-min called an emergency meeting of the Security Council. The aliens had finally understood something important about humans. We thought they were primitive because they lived in poison, he told the council. Now we know they are advanced because of it. Their whole biology is built around using deadly elements as tools. He-Jin listened as the council discussed what they had learned. The aliens now saw that humans weren't just surviving on Earth. They had mastered their harsh environment and turned it into an advantage. Perhaps, Sang-min concluded, we should be grateful that humans use their power to help others instead of conquer them. They saved our people from the dome accident without hesitation, even though they could have left us to die in their poison air. As the meeting ended, Jin-Ho's final report was sent to the Galactic Confederation. Its title read, Humanity, Masters of the Impossible. The aliens were beginning to understand that what looked like weakness was actually humanity's greatest achievement, turning deadly poison into the source of their strength. 3 months after the first contact, Captain He-Jin stood in the newly built Galactic Embassy on Earth. The building was special. It had both nitrogen-filled areas for the aliens and oxygen-rich spaces for humans. Clear walls separated the two sections, but they could work together easily. Commander Du-1 walked up to the separation barrier. "Captain, the Confederation has made their final decision about Earth's classification." He-Jin smiled. "And what have they decided to call us now?" "They named Earth a Class X resilient world," Du-1 said proudly. "It's a new category we created just for you. It means a planet that creates extremely strong life forms through harsh conditions." In the embassy's research wing, Dr. Jae-yun worked with Yuri on a new project. They were studying how humans and aliens could help each other despite their different biology. "Your people turn oxygen into energy," Yuri said, looking at test results. "We turn nitrogen into different kinds of power. Together, we could do amazing things." Jae-yun nodded. "That's why the Confederation changed their minds about us. They realized different kinds of strength can work together." In the main hall, He-Jin met with the Galactic Security Council. Earth was joining the Confederation's defense alliance, but not as a weak planet that needed protection, as a strong partner that could help protect others. "Your emergency teams can work in conditions that would kill our people," Council Leader Sangmin explained. "And our ships can travel through space better than yours. Together, we can help more worlds than either of us could alone." He-Jin looked at the new treaty on her screen. "So you don't think we're primitive anymore?" Sangmin laughed, a sound like silver bells. "Primitive? Your people drink acid for fun, breathe poison as a power source, and think living on a corrosive world is normal. You're not primitive. You're incredible." In the embassy garden, humans had built a special area where alien children could safely watch Earth plants grow. The children were amazed that plants could live in oxygen and make more of it. "How do the plants not burn up?" one alien child asked Professor Taiho, who was teaching that day. "The same way humans don't burn up," Taiho explained. "They learn to use oxygen as a friend instead of an enemy." Later that evening, He-Jin and Du-1 sat in their separate sections of the embassy's viewing room, watching the sunset together. The sky turned orange and pink, colors that looked beautiful to both species despite their differences. "When we first arrived," Du-1 said, "we thought humans were weak because they had no armor, no protective shells, and lived in poison air. We were so wrong." "Everyone makes mistakes," He-Jin replied. "What matters is learning from them." Du-1 nodded. "We learned that strength comes in many forms. Your bodies might look fragile to us, but your ability to adapt and survive is remarkable." As night fell, lights came on in the embassy. In one section, aliens breathed their safe nitrogen air. In another, humans went about their work in what the aliens once thought was poison. But now they all understood. Different species could be strong in different ways. "To new friendships," He-Jin said, raising a glass of water. "To new understandings," Du-1 replied, raising his container of nitrogen-based liquid. "And to never again, judging a species by how they look." Above them, stars twinkled in the night sky. Somewhere up there, other alien species were reading reports about the amazing humans who turned poison into power and weakness into strength.